Hey there YouTube, welcome back to another video. Not Napoleonic related this time. I thought I'd show you my progress so far on my Team Yankee stuff. I've basically kind of finished the starter box set now, and I just thought I'd give you a quick overview of it, because I'm fairly happy with how it's turned out. So first of all, let's go for the Soviet side of the starter set. So I really do rate the starter set. Actually, it's really good value, and it's really quite tempting not to actually just buy another, because the value that you actually get from it is actually really good. So let me just get the. Obviously the Soviet stuff has been done in its normal sort of drab green colours. Now the time that I'm kind of basing this around is the sort of really late 80s, really early 90s, and at this particular point, in fact actually up to as late as sort of 2007, I think, there was a lot of Russian armour still in this similar sort of just drab green colour scheme. But I think they have started to camouflage a lot of their vehicles up now. But it wouldn't surprise me if you could probably still find vehicles in the same sort of colour scheme. And I suppose you could say that they've kind of more or less stayed the same since the 80s, really. So first up, we have 3 T64s, which no girl. I'm sorry about that. I've got the box open in my hand, and then Bo decides to try and get inside it. That's not a good idea, girl. So here we go. These are the T64s. Obviously well outdated by this sort of time period, but I'm sure you could probably find some reserve units that are still plugging away with them. Obviously these have been modernised up a fair bit from their 80s variants, but they look more or less the same. This is the command vehicle of the 3, the platoon leader. You can see that it's got the commander in. I was pretty chuffed with how these turned out, actually. I was a little bit dubious about the colours when I first started doing them. I think I started off with an olive drab base, and then kind of highlighted up with Russian uniform green, and then kind of weathered them up. So yeah, nothing super special, but they look nice. So that's the T64s, and the first part of the Russian starter set. So let's just move those back. Next up, we have a couple of BMP3s, and these are basically recon vehicles. So here we have the 2 BMP3s. These models were pretty much new when the starter box came out, so it was really good value getting 2 of them in the box. Pretty decent troop carriers, these, actually, although they're not particularly amazing when it comes to debussing their infantry, because they've only got like these 2 small doors at the back here, and I think there's 2 hatches there. So, and plus it's also got a reduced troop capability. It's only got, I think it can only hold like eight guys, not including a commander, a gunner, and a driver. So when these guys debus, it's quite slow, because you basically get, like half the guys coming out of the back, and then some guys climbing out of the top. which all makes for not a particularly smooth debus, or certainly not as smooth as having a rear ramp. But you can see that the commander for this one actually did in his military uniform rather than tank overalls, because the commander of a BMP is generally the squad officer, and as this is like a scout, obviously they probably wouldn't be carrying troops, but the chances are that it's still an infantry officer in charge. Plus, if I ever want to proxy it as a BMP platoon and add some infantry, you'll also double up for that. So there you go, the BMP3. You can see that I've added some aerials. I've basically done that to all my vehicles. The classic sort of melted sprue aerial, which I've been doing for a long time, and I really do like. I think it makes really good aerials. I suppose you could say that the only downside to them is that they're quite brittle and they would snap off easy, but they do look really good. So that is the two BMP3s. Now finally, and I suppose you could say that this is kind of like the star part of the set. The starter set was the addition of the new T-80 as well for the Russians, the new model. So let me just get these guys out. So you basically get 4 T-80s in the starter set, which is really cool. Another good reason to actually buy a second starter set, because I've seen it for like £27 on Wayland Games, and that's basically the price of a box of five T-80s at £28 something. So it's really good value. So here we have the T-80s, the most modern and brutal of the Soviet tanks. Almost when you look at the stats of these things and compare them against the M1, you almost think, well, how can these things be so cheap? Because you generally get 4 of these T-80s for a cheaper price than 3 M1s. So here's the really nice model, actually. Really nice model. Again, tank commander in this one, and it's the command variant, so I've put the 3 aerials on. This is actually the HQ tank, because in the starter set you have this as the HQ tank, and then you have a platoon of 3. Again, same sort of basic paint scheme, not particularly hard to do really, a little bit boring I suppose you could say, but because they're so small, you know, I basically did the whole, I think I did the whole platoon and the BMP3s at the same time, and he took like about just over an hour. If you say sort of a couple of hours in total, if you include paint drying and stuff. So yeah, that's the Russian side of the starter set there. So 4 T-80s, 3 T-64s, and 2 BMP3 Scouts. So let's just move those boys out of the way. And we'll go for the Americans. Now the Americans, I didn't want to go for like the early European camouflage scheme, because I've never really been a massive fan of it. I think it looks too bright. And obviously as I'm kind of designing my force around the 90s, I was looking around, and there was basically, there seems to be 3 different types of camouflage scheme all floating around at this particular time, and they're basically all green, green and black, or a kind of toned down version of the older scheme, with more predominant black, and that's kind of the scheme that I decided to go for. Originally I was going to go for the all green, but it just looked a little bit too much like the Russian scheme, so I decided to go for the sort of the tricolour, or the pretty much near enough woodland camouflage scheme. So here we have the basic setup for the starter set, which is an HQ tank, and that's actually, is that the, yeah, it's actually the other way around. So that's the, so within the sort of the starter box set, you're supposed to have a platoon of 2 M1s, just basic M1s. So they've even got the old style, slightly older guns, and also and 1 improved M1, improved armour M1, which is the version just before the M1A1. And the big difference between this and an M1A1 is there's an APU on the back here that sticks out. It's like a sort of a square box. I've actually got an M1A1 undercoated in my little box here, and I'll just quickly show you that, because there are a few little differences between the two variants. So this is an M1 basic, and this is a M1A1, and you can basically see it's got the slightly different gun. It's also got the a different plate design on top here. This one's got like double grooves. This one's just got the one. It also has this extra little thing here, which I think is some kind of periscope which pops up, and it also has this APU on the back here, which of course this one doesn't. So that's basically the only real differences between the two variants. So that is the M1s, the M1s basically, for the Americans. You can see that I went for that sort of basically woodland sort of camouflage scheme. Now the rest of my force is actually going to be done in sort of desert colours. I thought that would be quite cool. Even though I'll probably never be playing in the actual desert, I just thought it would be quite cool to have desert coloured tanks rather than having to keep doing this woodland camouflage malarkey. And I think it'll look quite cool in the end as well. So that is the 3 M1s that you get in the starter set for the Americans. Next up we have 2 M3 variant Bradleys. Now these are made into the A2 variants. So we have 2 M3A2s for scouting, and I was pretty happy with how these came out. They're really nice models. Again, these are new models for this year, or well, end of last year, stroke this year, and yeah, it's basically M3 Scouts. There's not much to them really. They're more or less just exactly the same, apart from the fact that these guys don't carry troops, although they can actually carry a small scout troop, but they're not really modelled in Team Yankee by the looks of it. But yeah, very nice model, and you can see that it's got the commander in there, and yeah, 2 pretty cool vehicles, and I suppose to sort of balance it out between the Russians and their 2 recon scout platoon. So you have 2 M3A2 Bradleys. Now finally, you actually get 2 M60s, which at the sort of time frame that I'm doing was basically on its last legs. These things were being phased out and being replaced by the M1. They're not a particularly amazing tank. I've never liked them, to tell the truth. I've never been a big fan of the M60. I thought it was an ugly looking tank. But yeah, I'm lumped with them, so you basically get 2 of them in the box. And yeah, and I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. They're nice models. Just not a big fan of the tank. Now I did actually, when I ordered my my Soviet infantry set from Plastic Soldier Company, I actually picked up one of their M60s, which you can actually either get in a box set or you can get one on its own. So I actually did pick one up, and they actually scale perfectly. But the only real kind of difference is that there's this grab rail on the side of the turret, and it's more pronounced on the Plastic Soldier Company one, and a lot less pronounced on the Battlefront one, because you actually stick them on to the Plastic Soldier Company one. And I thought that would be quite cool, just to have to make it up to a platoon of 3. Now I'm not 100% sure. I know there's a points imbalance between the Russian side and the American side. Now I can't remember exactly how much it is, but it's something like 8 or 9 points, which is actually a fair amount. I think that's right. It might be a little bit less, but I'm pretty sure that you can squeeze in an extra M60, and it's possible that the Americans might go a couple of points over the Russians, but it actually balances up the force for the starter box set if you add an extra M60. So I actually turned that into a platoon of 3, and I'm pretty chuffed at that, actually. I suppose I could kind of make them Marine Corps, I suppose, because the Marines were kind of starting to change their M60s for the M1s as well, but obviously they were a lot slower than the US Army, and they may not have even begun exchanging them until maybe a few years later. So it was basically more or less National Guards and the Marine Corps that was still using M60s at the sort of time period that I'm doing, really. Now that is actually the end of the starter set, so you can see that you get a really good amount for the money. Now I did actually do one more thing for the Americans from my American starter box, and that is I've done one of the Apaches. And this, I'm really pleased with how this turned out, actually. So it's a beautiful model, really easy to stick together, very highly detailed. I mean, if it had like a clear cockpit with a couple of pilots in, that would like really ice the cake, because I'm not really a fan of these moulded glass, no, well, not even glass, but sort of moulded cockpits where you have to sort of paint the glass on yourself. But I did actually think that the job that I did on it actually turned out really cool. I used this colour, where is it? It's disappeared. Actually, here it is. It's this colour called Periscopes by Vallejo Panzer Aces. And it's a really nice. It's a strange colour. It's right on the high scale of a turquoise going into a dark blue, and it just looks really cool when you paint it on as glass and then sort of gloss varnish over it. Now I did do a little bit of shading or highlighting rather on the window, and you can see that I've kind of like modelled or painted on the sort of the outline of like as if there's something in the cockpit. I mean, I don't know if you can just about make out like the silhouettes of the pilots and the chairs and the instrument panels and stuff. And I think it turned out really cool. And then of course we have the yellow tips on the rotors, and the white tips on the white stripes on the tail rotor. And also I sort of simulated the perspex noses of the Hellfires too, and I think it turned out really quite cool in the end. I'm really quite chuffed with that. So that is the end of this little video. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I say, I'm not going to really focus hardcore on Team Yankee. It's just a little sort of side project that I'll just do a video on every now and then when I've done something significant. I kind of plan on painting them in as large batches as possible. So I think what I'll probably do next is I'll build up the majority of my American starter set, and then I'll just get my airbrush out and prime them all, and then eventually I'm going to actually use the airbrush to actually airbrush on the sand colour, which is already got the paint in actually. It's a US Desert Armour Vallejo model there. I've actually got two of them because I had one on long-term order from Wayland Games, which actually came in, and I got it for a really good price. I think it cost me like £2 something, and there must have been like a shortage of them in the country, because I hunted around to try and find another one, and I ended up paying like £5 for like one, and then literally 2 weeks later Wayland get them in, and I get the same colour paint for like less than half the price. So it does show that there's obviously some sort of supply problem at some point, that some places were scalping up the prices a little bit. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back. I'm actually working on my my 3rd Battalion First Guards at the moment. They've started. This is the sort of stage that they're at the moment. So it's kind of getting towards the end of all the base colours on, and then I'll start doing all the highlighting and the shading and stuff. Doing 6 at a time. You can see that this is obviously the firing line guys. There's one of the that's one of the standing guys. This is one of the kneeling guys. So you can see that they're starting to take shape, although obviously I'm only on the first 6 at the moment, so they're quite slow going, I've got to say. I always tend to get that at the very, when I'm sort of closing in on finishing finishing a project. It's kind of you know, one more unit to do and I finish this division, and then literally the other 2 units I've got left to do, they only need one more unit too. And I find that I'm dawdling. I need to focus in a little bit and try and get them done a little bit faster rate than what I'm going at the moment. I mean, I think these 6 guys, I've only done like really short painting sessions. I've only done like 2 or 3 hours tops over the last, and probably not even that actually. Probably like an hour or two for the last sort of 2 or 3 days. Yeah, it's slow going. I need to focus down and motivate myself to go at a slightly faster rate. Otherwise, these guys are going to take me a couple of weeks to finish, and they should only really take me a week. But I'm sure once I've got past painting the first 6, when you sort of you know, you're sort of getting used to their poses and how to paint them tidily, and not sort of overpaint stuff and things like that, because I think the trouble with firing poses is that generally it makes the face difficult to get to. In the muskets, some of the parts of the musket are quite difficult to get to because of the positions that they're being held. So it means that you're basically slower painting them, because you have to kind of either change brushes or be really careful when you're painting them. But yeah, anyway, going off subject a little bit there. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.